At the risk of kicking over the beehive again, I would like to address a few of the predominant complaints that some of the more touchy people have had against my Avatar review. Number one of which being the comment that, "What the hell were you thinking not seeing it in 3D? You stupid man! 3D was the way this movie was meant to be seen!" And I would disagree with you, but let's just roll with that for now. They're like, "You should have seen this in 3D." And my answer is, no, I won't. I don't want to. And I had the choice. I chose not to do it. You know why I chose not to do it? Because I have fucking migraines. And watching a fucking 3D movie in fucking 3D for 2.5 fucking hours would make my head explode. I feel a little better now. Look, 3D, I'm sure, was fantastic in that movie, and probably elevated the movie a great deal in your eyes. I won't deny that it was probably one of the greatest technical achievements in the current evolution of 3D technology today. That being said, I couldn't have taken it. I even tried watching Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince for the first 20 minutes or so in 3D, and that just about finished me off. Now, I guess your next comment is, "Sorry about your damn luck. I don't have migraines and it was awesome." Well, good for you. But for me, a movie, 3D is a gimmick, okay? And until the technology comes to pass where we're not doing something to fool our eyes by wearing stupid glasses, until the technology actually comes out where 3D is a more legitimate, attainable and entertaining, a more viable option for movies, I just don't see it becoming mainstream. And I think that, I'll give you an example. Coraline. I really liked Coraline's 3D. And that was actually a movie I was able to sit through most of it without getting a serious headache. And I thought it used 3D really well, and it wasn't obtrusive about it. It wasn't like punch you in the face type thing. Like Coraline would run through a tunnel and the walls would be kind of moving. You're like, that was kind of cool. But when I got the Blu-ray of Coraline, I was really disappointed to see that the 3D glasses they offered were the red and green variety, instant headache fucking inducing 3D glasses, which does one of a number of things beyond the headache. It makes the movie unwatchable, for one, and the reason it does that is because you're looking at it through a red and green lens, and the reason that makes it unwatchable is because it immediately bleeds out all perception of color that you have in the movie. So you're essentially watching a horribly clashing, chaotic 3D thing, and then it hurts your head because you're fooling your brain into perceiving a 3D image, and when you fool your brain, it fucking hurts because you can't focus. So the Coraline was a complete waste of money, or at least trying to watch it in 3D is a complete waste of time. Similar with Avatar. If they don't release Avatar such that you have to watch it through at least the less headache-inducing 3D of the IMAX variety, it's going to be a complete waste. You're going to open your Avatar DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, you're going to see those fucking red and blue lenses, and you're going to be like, this is impossible, I can't watch this, and you won't be able to watch this, and you won't. So, until the technology evolves where it becomes more than just a theatrical gimmick that you can actually bring this movie home and maybe enjoy it in 3D as well, I just don't see how it's an option. I don't like it. And and here's the other thing. Again, you may perceive this to be a little unfair, but if you take away the 3D and you take away the graphics, which are impressive, let's say you made this movie 10 years ago. Let's say you did it with practical effects. You had actually people in blue face makeup and cat faces and things like that, and used miniatures instead of 3D animation or something like that. It would have been a completely different movie, but let's just roll with the same script. If you saw this movie 10 years ago with these kind of effects, you would have walked out going, it was okay, but the script was really nothing remarkable. And that's what I mean, is the story itself is really nothing remarkable. The only thing remarkable about it is the effects. And to me, effects alone do not sell tickets. Unless they happen to be, like, really, really spectacular. And honestly, they weren't, to me. So that's my review of that. A lot of people have asked if I would be willing to do like a lot of people are doing top 10 lists, or not even top 10 lists of the year. I know Benzai's doing like top 10 lists or top 5, 10, whatever lists of the decade. And that blows my mind. I'm actually really impressed that he's able to do that, because I can't remember. Keep in mind all of these movies that were released this year. I can't really remember all the movies that were released this decade. Or, I mean, I guess I could, but the problem with the reason I don't like lists is because I'm going to forget stuff. And I will forget stuff, because there's so many great movies out there that just they're all going to run together, and so it almost seems unfair to list the top 10 of the decade. I will say that I was a little surprised with Benzai's list. Very unconventional choices. Probably wouldn't have gone with most of the ones he did, especially not even that Takashi Miike film. Did he choose was it Visitor Q? That's actually one of my most hated Miike films, and I really like a lot of his stuff, but I really hated Visitor Q. That one is fucking nice, but I can really see Benzai in his room going like, "This is fucked up. This is awesome." You know, I can actually really see that. But best of the decade, I did a best of the year, and they're in no particular. I'll get to that. And I thought about doing like a fully produced video. I don't have time, and I'm going to be laid up pretty soon with the foot. So I will tell you my favorite of the year, but best of the decade. See, this is going back a ways, and I'm going to forget a few. The one movie that kind of sprang to mind from its absence from Benzai's list, the one movie that really stuck out to me was Old Boy. I really, really liked Old Boy. And I'm pretty sure that was this decade. Like I said, my memory not so great, but yeah, Old Boy is one of those movies where I'm guessing even if I told Benzai and if he'd seen that, he'd be like, "Oh, Jesus, Old Boy, that was an awesome movie," right? And so, like, that's what I mean is if I did a top 20 list of best movies of the decade, I would get instantly 100 emails saying like, "Why didn't you choose this movie? It was awesome," and I'd be like, "Yeah, that was a really great movie," but I think if I were going to choose the best movie of the decade, really one that sticks out to me is Old Boy. It would definitely be among top 5. Let me try to think of other movies that I saw this year that would really stand out to me as really being awesome this year. Really like the Lord of the Rings movies, but I'm a big nerd, so why not? Yeah, let me get to the top 10 of this year, and I was going to do a top 10 worst, but here's the thing. I was very conscientious to avoid the really, really painful movie this year. I'm a little disappointed with the fact that I kind of chickened out on a lot of the bad movies. I didn't see Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2. I didn't see Hotel for Dogs or Old Dogs or any of the dog movies, anything involving dogs. I didn't see Alvin and the Chipmunks 2. I think I was just smart enough to look at those previews and go, I don't need that pain in my life. I just went, no, I don't think so. If I were to pick out some of the worst movies that I have seen this year, geez, Transformers 2. I know it seems like I'm harping on that, but it was seriously one of the worst fucking movies I think I've ever seen in my life. That was really, really bad. I got another one. I won't tell it, but my brother knows what it is, but I'm not going to say it because I think that would instantly remove all credibility I have as a critic if I were to tell you. I'll just tell you. It's this French movie called The Class, which I thought was one of the most boring goddamn films I've ever seen in my life. It's like if you went to college and audited a French language class, that's The Class. That's the movie. My brother's like, this is an awesome movie. I know, I bring it up just to make him mad. I'm sorry, I'll stop. But best movie this year, again, these are in no particular order, but I do have a best of this year, or my favorite one of this year. And I know you're going to bring up movies that I forgot this year. There are a few. And here's where my list gets kind of hinky. where I will actually list a few that were not necessarily great films, but were really great movie-going experiences. And so I think that's kind of where Avatar might fit in for some of you, where you'd be like, not a great film, but a really great movie-going experience. Like, I'm really glad I experienced that. So, for instance, 2012 has no place being on a best movies list, but I had a really good time watching it, if that makes sense. So, here we go. I do have some honorable mentions. Let me just double check. Honorable mentions. Michael Jackson's This Is It. Again, not a really good movie, but it was just really interesting to watch. I really liked it. Again, this is considering a character I am actually very morally dubious about. You know, when I can't say I really like the guy personally, but the guy could really sing. You know, the guy was a really awesome pop star. And it was just really interesting seeing this concert that never was. I found it really fascinating. The second one, honorable mention, is The Twilight Saga: New Moon, which, I kid you not, was one of the most fun movie-going experiences I've had this year. Horrible movie. Horrible film. In no way would I recommend this movie to anyone. But I had a lot of fun making fun of this movie in the theater. And I actually had some people laughing around me, which was a really cool feeling that people weren't actually turning around like casting hate beams upon me. I was making fun of the movie in the theater, and people were laughing, and so nobody was really getting mad. And I actually asked, like, "Are you guys getting mad?" And they're like, "Yeah, whatever." But we were just kind of, it was really a barrel of laughs, having fun. So, really fun movie. So, honorable mention for best movie going experience, New Moon. Up, Pixar's Up, really liked it. Again, a 3D movie that didn't necessarily break my head. I mean, I didn't watch it all in 3D, but I kind of on and off. It was okay. I really liked, but the story I really liked it. I think that one maybe I've had a hard time in the theaters, in the box office, because I think it's kind of hard for kids to relate to an old man as your protagonist. That was probably a hard movie to greenlight and get through there, but really liked it. Drag Me to Hell. I really raved about this one in a vlog. I remember that, and probably one of the best of the year. I got it on DVD and watched it immediately. I really like Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. Very basic story, but very well acted. Used I watched the unrated director's cut, which is, I prefer the theatrical version, because the director's cut, you can really, there's not a whole lot that's added to it, but they really prolong the gore effects. And I can't remember if this is the difference between the theatrical version and the director's cut, but there's one moment in this movie where the woman, I can't remember her name, she starts to get a nosebleed at work. And in the unrated version, at least in the unrated version, she starts like fountaining blood out of her nose like there's a high pressure hose. It's almost like an anime, and I was like, oh, okay, that's too much. Seriously? with the blood like spraying out, like she covers her desk in this stuff. She's like, ah! And I was like, yeah, you probably should have cut that. I was not a fan of that, but the ending is not really that different. I don't think it's different at all. But yeah, if you haven't seen Drag Me to Hell, you really owe it to yourself. That one is, I would almost consider that to be an unofficial Evil Dead sequel. If you were waiting for an Evil Dead sequel, that's pretty much as close as you're going to get. I don't think Bruce Campbell's going to come back for it. This was really close. Oh, by the way, if you can't tell from my wallpaper, Crank High Voltage. Really love this movie. I'm a big fan of the Crank series. This is one of the films where it very much fills the adage, the movie doesn't have to be good to be awesome. That's pretty much it. It's really when you have Jason Statham running around fucking people up, and it's that really high kinetic, almost like this. They just really have a real flair for kind of doing this music video crash editing footage that makes this a really entertaining film from beginning to end. I don't think it's as good as the first Crank, but still, the first Crank was really sublimely good. I really enjoyed it, and so this was a lot of fun. I mean, this is a great flick. This is one of those movies you can put in any time and watch because it's always fun and it never gets old. So it's kind of like it's very much in that very fun spirit of Big Trouble in Little China, one of my favorite movies. Let's see, Adventureland, another Kristen Stewart movie. I really liked Adventureland. Not much more to say about that one. That was a movie that you kind of felt like it was trying to really go on this Superbad type vibe, with the very gritty kind of this very dirty feel to it. This kind of almost like a '70s vibe to it. I would check that out. Actually, Kristen Stewart did not make me want to punch her in this movie. She still looks really sleepy-eyed, but I think part of the problem with Twilight is they kind of bill Bella as like this radiant, one-in-a-lifetime beauty, and Kristen Stewart is really not that. She's a very girl-next-door type, and in Adventureland she plays a very girl-next-door type, where she looks very... this sounds really bad. Attainable. She kind of looks like one of those girls that's really not out of a bum's league. Like who was the other guy? Jesse Eisenberg. You kind of believe that she would go for Jesse Eisenberg, and in some of these movies like Knocked Up, you would be like, in no way would any chick go after fucking Seth Rogen. Like Seth Rogen looks like Fozzie Bear, for Christ's sakes. It's one of those movies where you kind of bought that everyone was very well cast. Anyway, rambling. Watchmen, probably, if there was a movie that was on the cutting line, Watchmen would be it. I know a lot of people didn't like Watchmen, be it the space squid or whatever. I really liked it. I don't know what else to say about that. I walked in there knowing there would not be a giant space squid, wasn't expecting one. I pretty much had it figured, and I'm a big fan of the graphic novel. I don't think it really betrayed the graphic novel in any serious way. It was entertaining. Was it great? No. And I think, what's her name? Malin Ackerman. Really poor choice in casting, but whatever. I think it was just good to see Watchmen on the big screen, and it was one of those movies that was long said to be unfilmable, and I think they filmed it. I think they did a good job filming it. And seriously, all the complaints I think people brought up, and all the complaints that even I brought up, except for like the casting choices, if you asked me how I would have fixed it in the script, I pretty much would have fixed it exactly like they did in the film. I would have cut the black freighter. I would have cut... hell, I can't remember. But I pretty much would have cut it together the way they did. The scripts, I think they did a really good job. That's all I can say. Coraline, again, I really like that movie. Paranormal Activity, which I believe is coming out on DVD tomorrow. This will actually maybe prove to me whether or not I was on target or way off when I said that this movie is only worth watching in a theater, because now that I think about it, a lot of people said that in many ways this is more effective watching Paranormal Activity alone at home, because again, this movie takes place where a ghost terrorizes people alone at home. And so I think, again, when you're at home and you've just seen this movie in the dark, and all of a sudden all those noises of the house settling and traffic passing or branches scraping against the window, I think, yeah, all of a sudden they would take on a much more creepy bent to them, And again, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to watch it again. The alternate endings. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but I have seen the alternate endings. I'm trying to remember how many there were. I've seen one that has police in it, and that was the one that sounded really interesting to me at the beginning. The one where the police arrive. And that's not a spoiler, don't worry about it. Just there are police at some point near the ending in one of the alternate endings. Again, not a spoiler. But the ending to that one really seemed interesting to me because of the how to say this. There's a long stretch where you're just kind of watching in silence, and then stuff happens. And so that really long stretch kind of seemed interesting to me. And it was where you kind of hear the answering machine ringing and people are trying to stop by to check on them. But I didn't think it worked as well as the theatrical ending. The theatrical ending. It's probably the best way to go with that one. I don't. Oh, I didn't see there's a third ending I didn't see, and I don't know if they'll have that on there. I think they definitely will have the police ending on there, but I really like Paranormal Activity. That was another one where I got a little bit of guilt on that one from fans. They're like, Blair Witch sucked, and so does this, but whatever. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I am not a Harry Potter fan, but I really, really like this movie. I think it was the best of the series, which is funny because if my brother were here, he would say it's the worst of the series. He really didn't like it. And I said, why? He's like, well, I've read the books. And I'm like, well, I can't win now, can I? He's like, well, I don't know. But he says he felt it was a lot of Harry chasing after Poontang. And there was so much Harry chasing Poontang that it cut out like relatively vital elements of the plot. And I didn't really notice that, but maybe if I watch it again, I would. A lot of Harry dating and a lot of concern with Harry's dating life. He seemed really fixated on that. And so if I watch it again, I probably will notice it now that he's drawn my attention to it. But the other thing he said he noticed is that the loss of Dumbledore, or the departure of Dumbledore from the story, is handled with surprisingly little dramatic impact. That they just kind of... He goes away, and then they kind of go, that's very sad, credits. You know, they don't really spend much time dwelling on it. They don't really spend much time dwelling on the horrible pain that Dumbledore is in after drinking that potion. Because apparently in the book, he spends quite a long time, like, in horrible agony, wasting away and, like, just agonizing. And then finally he departs. And then they mourn for quite a long time, and they're all devastated by this, just stricken down by this. And I think in the movie they do kind of they kind of have a Darth Vader funeral, and they like, see you, Dumbledore, and they just kind of frolic off. And maybe it's not quite that happy, but it is abbreviated. I will agree. And when you're really invested in Dumbledore's character, I think maybe he deserved a little more. Like maybe like Gandalf when he went away. No. Anyway, I thought it was really good. Maybe it's one of those movies that. What's funny about the Harry Potter series is, I would almost suggest watching the movies first, and then reading the books to kind of fill in the gaps, if that makes sense. I think when you read the books and then watch the movies, they only piss you off. Because that's what my brother's kind of going through. He's like, I really like the books, but these movies are just too short, and like they cut out all the stuff I really liked. And I get that, but I think maybe watching the movies and then when you read the books, you're like, oh, that's where this is going, and this is why they said this, and maybe that's the way to go. Usually, you'd recommend reading the book first and then getting annoyed at the movie. I don't know. The Hurt Locker. Yeah, the Hurt Locker. Really falls into a strange genre because I really don't like movies that are centered on either the Iraq War or the war in Afghanistan or the latest Iraq War, like Desert Storm and the latest Iraq War. There's only a few movies that I think really, really nailed that era or those eras. One of them being Three Kings, which I really like. Three Kings. Three Kings is one of those movies that was maybe kind of ignored back in the day, but has really become very poignant and really shockingly prophetic in hindsight when you watch the Iraq, like when you watch all the stuff we're going through with the oil crisis and the war in Iraq right now. Going back to the other Iraq war with Three Kings, it was really fascinating. But there's really not that many movies that I find that are all that gripping when it comes to that. Only a few. I really liked In the Valley of Elah with Tommy Lee Jones. That was a good one, but not really about the war in Iraq. I really hated Jarhead. I thought Jarhead was really fucking boring. And that was kind of the point of Jarhead, where nothing really happened in the original Iraq war. They hurried up and waited. And that was the movie, was about hurrying up and waiting, where nothing really happened up until like the very, very end. And even then, it was kind of anticlimactic. And so Jarhead was kind of one of those movies about frustration and boredom. And I was frustrated and I was bored and I didn't like that movie. But there's a few other movies like Taxi to the Dark Side, which deals with the American cruelty to prisoners, which was okay as a documentary, but again, not really like a motion picture in terms of like in terms of a dramatic story. But Hurt Locker, again, really, really surprisingly, I walked in with a very negative attitude in this one because I really don't like that many Iraq War movies. And I was really surprisingly invested in it. And especially considering, I almost call it cliche, the gimmick of having like ticking bombs going off to heighten tension, because the whole movie is kind of about ticking bombs and people spontaneously exploding and things like that. But yeah, really not much more to say about that. It's really worth seeing, and I wish I'd seen it in the theater. I really do. Probably would have been even better. And again, that's a movie full of a lot of actors that you're surprised these actors, when they show up, you're like, wow, this guy was in this movie. I went to IMDb just to see all the actors that I didn't recognize, and you just kind of look through there and like, you got to see this again, because you're really relishing all these really great performances. But my favorite movie of the year, Inglourious Bastards. Really, really love that movie, and I've watched it. That was probably the only movie I've seen this year more than once in the theater, and it only gets better with repeated viewings. And I've heard a couple people on Twitter when I mentioned District 9 that I tried watching District 9 again, and I really wasn't feeling it. I was like, this is a really grim and ugly movie. Not ugly in the sense that it was visually ugly, but it deals with a lot of human ugliness, and it was just kind of, I didn't like it. The second time around, and maybe I was in a bad mood. It could be. I won't say it's a bad movie. I just, for some reason, a repeated viewing, it didn't do anything for me. Maybe it was one of those movies where you see it once and you're kind of done with it. Like you've seen District 9. You kind of got some closure on that one. But Inglourious Bastards, I think, is very rewatchable. Again, that movie is kind of frustrating, especially if you're not used to reading subtitles. And I know a lot of people can't switch off long enough to invest that kind of concentration in watching a movie. I'm not calling you guys dumb. I'm just saying, like, you really have to invest yourself quite a bit in watching a movie that has such pervasive subtitles. And it really is a commitment. But this is a movie that takes a fair amount of commitment to watch. But again, this features some of the best performances of the year, and I think you're going to see that come Oscar time, which is probably not that far off. I got it on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray actually is kind of bare bones when it comes to extra features. I was expecting a director's commentary, and you don't get that, which I really like the director's commentaries, especially for movies I like, and it's not on this one. There's a good interview segment with Brad Pitt and Tarantino, but other than that, no. I'm pretty sure that's 10. Yeah, I didn't count too close. Let me think of other worst movies. See, where I'm having trouble with this one is most of the bad movies this year were movies I reviewed for the website. So, like, all these Reb Brown movies are kind of filling my head, and it's not doing me any favors. Oh, let's see. Nope, I got nothing. So, those are my favorite movies of the year. Truth be told, this was kind of a disappointing year for movies. But it did have some really, really good films. Like, just, it was a lot of crap, but a few very excellent shiny diamonds on top of the pile of crap. I could tell you any number of movies that I would avoid, like The Plague. Anything with dogs in the title, or Chihuahua. Yeah, I'd steer clear of those. I'm rambling, so I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to probably close the vlogs for tonight, rest my foot. Tomorrow I'll be doing a bunch of stuff. I would look for SWAT 4 tomorrow at least, or maybe the day after, depending on how much I get done. But until then, you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you on the other side.